Hi, welcome to another episode of ColdFusion. You might not be familiar with a little-known Chinese car brand called Build Your Dreams, or BYD, but they sell more EVs than Tesla.
From battery maker to the biggest electric vehicle or EV manufacturer in China, BYD is inching closer to unseating Tesla as the largest EV maker in the world.
Chances are you've seen one and rode in one of its vehicles unknowingly. Their electric shuttle buses, public transport buses, trucks, and taxis are cruising through countless cities globally. Their influence is expanding swiftly in Latin America and Southeast Asia, reshaping transportation in those regions. In Australia, where I live, you see them everywhere. Back home in China, they are the #1 EV maker and are now eyeing substantial growth prospects in Europe. Interestingly, they have a factory in the US, and in 2008, Warren Buffett chose to invest in them instead of Tesla. For as little as $10,000 US, you can own your own electric car, and that's compelling for a lot of people. But what is the story of this company? Are BYD cars actually good? And how did they grow to have such a massive global presence? In this episode, we'll find out. To help make sense of all of this, I interviewed Elliot Richards, Fully Charge's China correspondent. He's got intimate knowledge of what's happening on the ground in China. I'll include some snippets from our chat throughout this episode.
You are watching ColdFusion TV.
The growing popularity of electric vehicles is an opportunity for automakers globally. EV designs are simpler, with fewer moving parts and less complexity. This makes the playing field fresh when compared to combustion vehicles. Tesla was far and away the biggest player in the space. Rivian, Polestar, and Lucid were also making names for themselves. But suddenly, out of nowhere, in late 2023, BYD came through to knock Tesla off the #1 spot. BYD likes to promote itself as the, quote, biggest car brand you've never heard of. And it's true, at least in the context of sales figures. BYD recently overtook Tesla as the global leader in EV sales. Tesla did its best, delivering a whopping 484,000 vehicles in the last quarter of 2023, a solid 11% increase over the previous quarter, but it wasn't enough to keep their title as the #1 EV manufacturer. BYD swooped in with sales reaching 526,000 vehicles for the same period. BYD holds an impressive 35% market share in China. Their three most popular models are the Yuan Plus, the Seagull, and the Dolphin. Despite the whack names, they are proving to be a force to be reckoned with.
BYD have been building cars for 20 years. The cars the last 18 years haven't been very good. The last 3 years has really seen a lot of Chinese brands focus on, I think, gimmicks, to be honest with you. And I think what we're seeing now in 2024 is actually a change into things that people care about. So efficiency, the efficiency of an electric vehicle, safety, the important kind of basics instead of focusing on the glittery cherry on top bits. I mean, what's been happening in Europe, the UK and Australia is that BYD are just offering up their cars. And I think people are surprised at how good they are.
These three models cater to different segments of the market, from sedans and hatchbacks to SUVs. While Tesla's Model Y secures the 5th spot as China's best-selling EV, it's lonely out there because it's the sole representative of American EV efforts within the top 15. BYD's EVs have made significant strides globally too, particularly in Israel and Thailand, where they lead EV sales. Their electric taxis roam the streets of Bangkok. Indonesia's largest taxi operator is also planning to buy 80% of its EVs from BYD. The Chinese automaker is also expanding into Mexico, Brazil, and other Latin American countries, as well as the Middle East. In Europe, BYD aims to start producing electric cars by 2025, and they're currently scouting locations in France, Spain, and Germany. Now, if you're an American, you might be confused and thinking, why haven't I heard of these guys? Well, that's because BYD's passenger EVs are not available in the United States. And it's mostly a political thing. China and the US aren't exactly chummy when it comes to trade, so BYD decided to skip America for their passenger EVs. But that's not all. The Inflation Reduction Act has a strict criteria for federal tax credits, which prioritize US-based local production. Meeting this criteria would increase the cost for BYD, as much of its refinement is based in China. Recently, Elon even said that Chinese makers will, quote, pretty much demolish most competitors without trade barriers. So all of this is not to say that BYD doesn't have any presence in the US at all. You'll see BYD made non-passenger EVs like trucks, buses, and forklifts. They also have a 550,000 square foot bus manufacturing facility in California that employs over 750 workers. Other operations can be found in Illinois and San Francisco, where BYD has a service center for its electric buses and trucks. The company also manufactures garbage trucks, distribution vehicles, specialized tractors for ports and airports, and even a massive 60-ton dump truck used for mining. And this wide range of vehicles are sold to global clients.
And then they've also been able to scale overseas much faster than anyone else. So much so that they're building their own ships. So they've got one roll-on, roll-off ship, space of 7,000 cars that's built, and they're planning 7 more ships over the next 2 years or so. No other automaker has been able to do that so far.
So even though you may not have heard of them, you now know that BYD is absolutely huge. How does a company get so massive and diversify so quickly? To understand that, we need to go back to the origins of the company and its founder. Interestingly, they're actually a battery company first, and it kind of makes sense, right? Make the hardest part yourself and become an expert at that, and then build vehicles around that company core. If you have been following this channel from the early days, you would know that I've been covering the rise of electric cars for a lot of years. But I must say, over the past few years, things really do seem to be accelerating. I'm excited to say that this week I'll be in Sydney, Australia. I'm going to be taking part in the Everything Electric event. I'll be doing a special chat on AI, microchips, and the electric revolution with Robert Llewellyn. You can come and see my talk, and if you're around, I'd love to say hello to a few of you. Use the promo code ColdFusion and get 20% off tickets. That just comes to $60 for all 3 days entry to the event, or $40 for a single day on the 9th of February, which is the day of my talk. So if you're interested in EVs and all the latest in electric tech, definitely check it out. All the information is in the description below. So thank you for all of your support, and I'll hopefully see you there. BYD started its journey as a battery-making company and still is to this day. They make batteries of all sorts. Founded in 1995 by Wang Chuanfu, a former researcher and assistant professor at Beijing Technical University, BYD had a grand vision to revolutionize battery production in China. Setting up shop in Shenzhen, often referred to as China's Silicon Valley, was a well-thought-out move. Contrary to what you might think, BYD didn't dive headfirst into EV batteries. Its initial product was rechargeable batteries meant for mobile phones. Later, they supplied batteries for laptops and various electronic devices. Their client list included major players like Motorola, Nokia, and Samsung. By 2002, BYD had claimed the title as the world's second largest producer of rechargeable batteries, boasting 25% market share. Also that same year, the company went public on Hong Kong Stock Exchange. In 2003, Wang seized an opportunity of a lifetime. He would purchase a struggling company called Qinchuan. Investors were rattled and thought Wang had lost his mind. BYD's share price dropped as a result. But for Wang, it was a chance to expand his business and leverage his battery expertise. Establishing an R&D center in Shanghai, he famously had his engineers dismantle his Mercedes S-Class, and this was to set the tone for BYD's early strategy. Imitate the big boys, learn, copy, and produce. This reverse engineering tactic paid dividends, allowing BYD to offer premium-looking cars at affordable prices. Initially, they mimicked Toyota models, but at better value than the other Chinese competitors. But beginning in 2006, amid a Chinese booming economy, their domestic sales skyrocketed. Though at this time, they were mostly gasoline vehicles, Wang's next goal was to create electric vehicles, and the first example arrived in 2008. This was the same year that Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway purchased 10% of BYD's publicly traded shares in Hong Kong. The credit for bringing BYD to Warren Buffett's attention goes to Berkshire's vice chairman, the late, great Charlie Munger. Warren Buffett recalled this moment vividly in an interview with CNBC in 2018. Quote, Charlie called me one day and says, "We've got to buy BYD. This guy runs it better than Thomas Edison." Munger echoed the sentiment, comparing Wang Che-fu to a blend of Thomas Edison and Jack Welch, a problem-solving whiz who may have taken an idea or two, like Edison, and an effective doer, like Welch. Their initial investment of $232 million in 2008 turned into a jaw-dropping $7.4 billion by 2021. That's a staggering 30-fold or 3,000% gain, and that just showcases the brilliance of their investment move. It's also a testament to BYD's meteoric growth and success, at first domestically in China, and with Warren Buffett's backing, their public profile increased, and so did their international recognition. As of January 2024, BYD has a market capitalization of $74.8 billion, cementing its position as the world's 207th most valuable company. One of the main reasons for BYD's success was robust support from the Chinese government. As you might guess, China took a serious plunge into EVs in the early 2000s, aiming to shift gears away from combustion engines. The strategy? Generous tax breaks and incentives for both EV makers and buyers. A staggering $30 billion tax exemption was announced from 2009 to 2022, with an additional $97 billion in the pipeline through to 2027. Electric vehicle company tax rates would be slashed from the standard 25% to 15%, and all of this was enough to get the EV industry churning. Throw in the removal of license plate restrictions, and EVs in China started absolutely flying off the showroom floors. For an astute businessman like Wang, it was a golden opportunity. He already had a car manufacturing company and in-house expertise in making batteries, so the shift towards EVs was a no-brainer. So, as demand for EVs grew, BYD expanded the range of its EV models, and the Chinese consumers, they couldn't get enough. So you might be thinking, meh, this Wang guy just gets carried by the Chinese government, and that's why he's successful. Although there is some truth to that, there is some genuine innovation within the company. One notable success story at BYD is the creation of the Blade battery, a cobalt-free alternative to traditional lithium-ion batteries. This innovation is touted for its enhanced safety and stability. BYD not only incorporates these batteries into their own vehicles, but also sells them to other automakers, reportedly even including Tesla. Along with the technological edge comes vertical integration. BYD owns the vast majority of its supply chain for its EVs. From the batteries and motors to chips and software, BYD manufactures 75% of its parts in its flagship model, the Seal. For comparison, Tesla manufactures 68% of its Model Y components. BYD even has a chip-making arm, BYD Semiconductor, which of course makes the chips used in the EVs. This allowed BYD to avoid the global chip shortage that disrupted many of the other automakers. By having its own battery and chip production, BYD can reduce its costs, improve its quality, and can largely innovate faster than its competitors. Another reason for BYD's success is its price competitiveness. The Tesla Model 3 was supposed to be the electric car for the everyman, but starting at around $35,000, it isn't exactly cheap. For that price, the base Tesla Model 3 gets you a range of about 272 miles. On the flip side, the BYD Seagull starts at about $10,000 and it offers two battery options, one for 190 miles and another for 251 miles. These price differences and feature differences matter, especially in price-sensitive markets like China, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. BYD's popularity over Tesla in these markets are simply because they're cheaper. But how can BYD offer its EVs at such a low price? Well, one reason is vertical integration, as we just discussed, but lower production costs and economies of scale also help.
BYD have dominated the battery market as well. And now they are able to buy, lithium minerals in such volume that they get a really good price. And, generally in China, if, you're making a car, most of the materials are from here, the labor is a lot cheaper. So everything is just on a cheaper scale. So it can be done on a much lower cost, which is why they can produce these amazing cars for so little money.
It's the perfect blend of affordability and impressive features that sets BYD apart. But, of course, we've got to get to it. I know what a lot of you are thinking. If you buy one of these things, the wheels are just going to fall off when you reach highway speeds. While the cheaper models do leave something to be desired, according to Elliot, who was based in China and has hands-on experience with these cars, they're not as bad as you first might think.
Yeah, absolutely. So something like the Seagull is really a culmination of BYD's expertise and knowledge in all areas. So it's very well engineered. The battery quality, the battery engineering is very good, and it actually looks quite good as well. Now, BYD cars of the past, back to about 2015, were hideous things. They looked awful. No one would really want to buy one. But I think they've come on so much so quickly that they now can very much be competitive against things like the Ford Fiesta or the GM, the Chevy Bolt, those smaller cars. And, quality really hasn't been an issue with Chinese-made products like this for at least 5 or 6 years. So you think of, our iPhones or our Android phones, they're all made in China, or this Apple computer that I'm using has been made in China. It's good quality. So it's not a case of, these products are now are poorly made that come from China, because as you can see, all the things we use around us are made in China. So this is basically just transferred over to things like the BYD Seagull. But I don't expect it's going to break or fall apart very quickly. They're all entering Europe this year, and all of the Chinese cars that are entering Europe all have Euro NCAP 5-star ratings, which is not easy to get, but they've all managed it so far. So I don't think it's too much of a concern with these cheaper EVs.
BYD's flagship model, the Seal, is a much more interesting case. The BYD Seal is a medium-sized sedan with a sleek design and overall good performance. It's been labelled as a genuine threat to the Tesla Model 3.
So what's the final verdict on the Seal? Has the burgeoning Chinese brand built an electric sports sedan capable of blasting past Tesla in the sales race? Well, that's honestly pretty unlikely given the head start Tesla has, but there's really no reason not to consider the Seal. If you're looking for your first electric car, well then it is a pretty compelling proposition. Obviously, you can make the argument that it's cheaper and more affordable than a Model 3. But again, that is only part of the story. Annoying safety systems aside, this Seal is quick, it's quiet, it's dynamic, it's stylish, it's comfortable, and it is good value at the end of the day. All things that make it a very compelling package for an electric vehicle at this time.
However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The vehicle has been criticised for its over-reliance on touchscreens for functions, overly eager safety assist systems, and confusing and patchy warranty terms. It is clear that while BYD has made significant strides in the EV market, there's still a lot of room for improvement. Maybe in a couple of years we'll all be thinking different. Despite BYD's impressive growth, there were still speed bumps along the way. In 2022, they faced a hiccup in Australia, putting a pause on the delivery of the BYD Atto 3 due to a child safety seat compliance issue. That's not a small deal. Another noteworthy development was that Warren Buffett, who, after holding his position for a remarkable 14 years, has began to sell his BYD stock in August of 2022. Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway has since reduced his stake in BYD by over 60%. The reasons remain undisclosed, but anything from geopolitical factors to a profit-taking strategy could be an explanation. In October of 2023, the European Commission launched an anti-probe investigation into several listed Chinese EV manufacturers, including BYD. The investigation aims to determine whether punitive tariffs should be imposed, the reason being the protection of European EV makers. The focus will be on determining whether Chinese-made EVs, particularly those manufactured by BYD, benefit unfairly from state subsidies. I think that's a pretty interesting point. The investigation is ongoing and has lasted for 13 months. BYD's management has expressed full cooperation with the EU investigative authorities, so we'll have to wait and see what happens.
I think, to be honest, BYD are going to be the new Toyota. Toyota, for instance, last year sold just 100,000 electric cars. BYD sold that in about 3 weeks last year. Toyota seems set on burying its head in the sand and ignoring what's happening around the world, whereas BYD's just hoovering up their market.
In the last decade alone, we've witnessed electric cars explode from nearly 0 to 10.2 million on the road. According to some estimates, this number is expected to grow to 300 million by 2030. The whole EV game is evolving. Chinese companies, especially trailblazers like BYD, have been quick to seize the trend, outpacing their Western counterparts. Though, we cannot ignore the Chinese government's massive hand on this, but that's just the way it is at the moment. I think it's a fascinating space to observe. So what's your opinion on this? Do you think you would ever get something like a BYD? Are you wary of Chinese cars, or does that not faze you? I'd love to hear your insights, so share your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway, that's about it from me. My name is Dagogo, and you've been watching ColdFusion, and I'll catch you again soon for the next episode. Cheers guys, have a good one.
ColdFusion. It's new thinking.